Welcome everybody to this month in pseudoscience, World at War edition. Cheery, right? Well, if you think about it, we're always at war with something, aren't we? The war on drugs, the war on misinformation, the war on poverty. Personally speaking, I think it's a little weird to wage a ground war against the homeless, but what do I know? I'm not a gigabrain Chad military genius. Now, before we get into heavier topics, we need to address the war on tongues. No, what you're witnessing is not the aftermath of a bath salts-infused carnivore massacre of the Smurfs. No, it's a health fad. This is a new craze in biohacking, which, by the way, biohacking does not mean anything anymore. All of these woo-woo, quack, supplement pushers have effectively reduced it to mean the latest thing that we are encouraging gullible people to buy because there's no government oversight. These influencers are peddling a product made out of methylene blue, which is a very common chemical used in fish tanks and chemistry labs. Now, before we talk about what it actually does, let's see what they claim it does. TrueScriptions claims methylene blue is one of the most powerful mitochondrial optimizers on the planet, boosting energy levels, enhancing memory, improving focus, protecting the brain, and so much more. Now, is any of that true? Well, like with any of these unregulated supplements, they have this handy disclaimer on the bottom of their webpage.
Disclaimer. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The efficacy of these products has not been confirmed by the FDA-approved research. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All information presented here is not meant as a substitute for or to alternative information for healthcare providers.
However, I should point out that their founder, Ted Achacoso, he did finish medical school, and he was a medical doctor. However, he then later left that to become a hedge fund manager, trader, high-level Tibetan Dzogchen practitioner, and then retrained into peddling nootropics. Wait, can you smell that? Yeah, that's stanky grifter backstory. But does this methylene blue do anything? Well, browsing all available sources I could find so far, it looks like all evidence that it does anything is entirely from self-reporting. People just say that it does things, but there is no actual studies or evidence that it can supercharge your mitochondria or blah, 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 blah. So, no. But it can do something. You see, methylene blue is generally safe in small doses. However, there has been studies that have been done to address its toxicity in very large amounts. From a paper in the Journal of Anesthesiology and Clinical Pharmacology, features of toxicity include cardiac arrhythmias, coronary vasoconstriction, decreased cardiac output, renal blood flow and mesenteric blood flow, increased pulmonary vascular pressure and pulmonary vascular resistance, and gas exchange deterioration. As well, some people who are on SSRI medications like antidepressants can develop serotonin toxicity by taking methylene blue while taking their medication. And some people could say, well, Jeff, that's only if they take a whole lot of it. And to that I would say, is this the first time you've ever heard about somebody taking a fad nootropic? Because that happens all the time. And oddly enough, there are no warnings about this on the TrueScriptions website. I checked, you can too. Nor are there any warnings on any of the posts by the influencers posing with their blue tongues stuck out. Because the truth is, nobody cares. Not really. This isn't actually about improving health, boosting your mitochondrial rate, or anything like that. It's about money. This is another in a long-running theme of money-making scams, all preying on gullible people simply because the supplement industry is wildly deregulated. And also, it makes you look like an idiot. Moving on, we need to talk about Ukraine. As I'm sure you're aware, I avoid politics on this channel as much as I possibly can, which is growing harder and harder every single day. However, if you do want my spicy hot takes about those topics, you can go check out my second channel. But when it comes to Ukraine, there is something we need to talk about right here. Now, as of the recording of this video, we are over 2 weeks into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And there has been a very troubling development in the, hey, it's actually really cool and good actually that we're doing this reasons why department.
If you had told us just 4 days ago that the Biden administration was funding secret biolabs in Ukraine of all places, we would not have believed you. Yeah, I don't think we're going to put that on TV. No thanks. Then if you told us that not only did the administration fund these secret biolabs in Ukraine, but that they then failed to secure the deadly contents of those labs before the Russian invasion, an invasion they knew was coming, an invasion they helped encourage, if you had told us that 4 days ago, we'd have dismissed you as a nut.
Bioweapons. What's all this now? Well, to answer that, we're going to have to look at some claims made by Glenn Greenwald.
There is a major controversy that has emerged out of the war in Ukraine about whether the United States has biological weapons programs, both in general and specifically ones that they're developing and have cultivated in partnership with the Ukrainians in Ukraine, right on the other side of the Russian border. And I think it's incredibly interesting and important controversy, not because it determines whether the Russian invasion of Ukraine is or isn't justifiable, but because the United States is making some extremely emphatic statements denying that they have any biological weapons or ever have, let alone that they have them in Ukraine. The TASS agency, the Russian news agency, published an article, quote, Ukraine worked on development of biological weapons near Russian borders. Statement. Documents were obtained from employees of Ukrainian biological laboratories about emergency disposal of particularly dangerous pathogens of deadly diseases.
Okay, let's break this down. So the claims are that the U.S. has bioweapons in Ukraine, there was an emergency disposal of dangerous pathogens in Ukrainian labs, and the United States is lying when they dismiss these claims. Okay. Now, to help cut through the propaganda, because that's exactly what this is, we're going to have to look at the original document, and we're going to have to examine these claims very carefully. You see, Glenn here relies on his viewers not knowing Russian or not really knowing anything about pathogens. Thankfully, I'm here to break it down and not bypass the details. These leaked documents are certificate of destruction for a lab dealing with pathogens. Now, these are drawn up any time pathogens are going to be destroyed, and it's something that's done in any lab of good standing and merit as a standard bureaucratic practice to ensure that it was done safely and accurately. I mean, after all, you wouldn't want to take some random dangerous bacteria and throw it in the trash. That'd be bad. So this smoking gun of a document is actually just a standard piece of bureaucracy. It's not something secretive. It's not something hidden. It's very, very normal. But let's get to the gritty. What evil, dangerous bioweapons were they using in this lab? Now, to understand that, we have to understand how these pathogens are ranked, and they are given a rating of a biosafety level, a BSL, 1 to 4. 1 is harmless, 4 is Ebola. And these pathogens are used for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which are things like testing new medications, new antibiotics in order to fight those types of pathogens. But even so, they obviously had dangerous pathogens in that lab, right? No, not a single pathogen listed in that leaked document, smoking gun, had a BSL rating over 2. 1s and 2s. That's it. Let's state that another way. There were no BSL 4s, there were no BSL 3s. None. In fact, that laboratory is not rated to be able to handle dangerous bioweapons. In fact, Ukraine doesn't even have a lab that is rated to handle those types of pathogens. You know where there are some? Belarus and Russia. Just saying. On top of that, laboratory-grade pathogens are rarely, as in amazingly rarely, able to adapt to a wild environment. Which means that you can't just grab like a test tube full of some pathogen from a lab and break it in public and it will survive. Because it probably won't. Like, amazingly so, it won't. It just won't. Wild strains have adapted to live in a natural environment. Laboratory strains have not. Well, okay, so it was reasonably harmless pathogens and samples that were being destroyed. But why were they destroying them in a big panic? Were they trying to hide their bioweapons program that just seemed set on mildly inconveniencing and slightly making people sick? No, there were no drums of this stuff being destroyed. There were no canisters, not even jars of this stuff being destroyed. Test tubes. It was just lab tests, experiments that they were tossing out and destroying. Tossing out sounds like they just chucked it in the trash. But autoclaved and thoroughly destroyed. Just test tubes. Not a bioweapons lab. Keep in mind, the whole evidence for this is just this document. It's just this document. And everything else that's come of that is all make-believe. There is no further evidence than just this. And it, in and of itself, their smoking gun, it just little tiny amounts of like, we're gonna give you a really gnarly cold, bro. Lastly, we need to address this wild claim that the US was involved in this. And keep in mind, this lab had the oversight by basically the Ukrainian version of the CDC. But why was the United States involved? Well, it's because it was listed that some of these pathogens were purchased from labs in the United States. And yes, there are some communication between United States labs and Ukrainian labs, along with labs all over the world. That's kind of how we address things like, pandemics. But you know where else they bought samples that were also used in that lab? Russia. So why aren't we getting the story that it's a joint Ukrainian-Russian bioweapons lab to make people have the sniffles with tiny test tubes worth of stuff? I wonder why that would be. It sure seems like when you take the time to actually investigate this stuff thoroughly, rather than just parrot a bunch of weird political talking points, you get to something that actually resembles the truth, doesn't it, Glenn? I say, a YouTuber working out of my garage, to the man who makes millions of dollars going around and parroting all of this garbage. Yep. But hey, to be fair to Glenn, it's not like any of us could ever fathom a world leader lying about weapons of mass destruction in order to justify the invasion of another country that just is so completely unheard of. Oh, yeah, shit. As an aside, this non-traversy was originally spread on Twitter virally by a QAnon account, which was then later picked up by people like Glenn and Fox News, and now pushed and signal boosted by state media in Russia and China. Great work, guys. You're killing it. Now, in the description box below, I have included a thread by Ilya Lozovsky, which was translating for Olga Pettersson, a doctor of biology in Sweden. Her and quite a few of her colleagues helped to debunk this, and they did a fantastic job. And now, QUACKWATCH.
The New World Order.
Freedom, baby. Freedom.
I came here because I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Now, for QUACKWATCH this month, I thought we would set our sights on the indestructible parasite, Dr. Oz. Now, this is not the first time I've covered Dr. Oz. I have previously done a long-form live stream where I was looking into some of his claims and his greatest dips. But that was because he was being appointed to a special board by President Trump at the time, and I was flabbergasted at the very notion. However, he is now running for Senate, and so we're going to look at him again. Yes, that's right, Dr. Oz. Dr. fucking Oz wants to be a senator, specifically in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, does he live in Pennsylvania? No. Actually, he lives in a mansion in New Jersey. But for the past year and a half or so, he's been voting through a family's address in Pennsylvania so he can run for Senate in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure to some of you that sounds kind of sleazy, and to that I would just reply, it's Dr. Oz, man. Why are you surprised? Anyway, here's his campaign ad.
My parents came to America to find a better life, and they did. I attended great universities, raised a family, and became a successful surgeon.
I mean, it's true, he is a gifted surgeon, and for all the jackass things that he does, he's not a stupid person.
Then I started a TV show to advocate for you taking control of your health.
Yeah, and he had guests like Brian Edwards on. You know, the speaker with the dead that preys upon grieving people for money. Charming.
And took on the medical establishment to argue against costly drugs and skyrocketing medical bills.
Except that's not what you did. You pushed unproven products and supplements on your goddamn TV show and sowed seeds of doubt in established medical procedures, practices, and science.
But COVID has shown us that our system is broken. We lost too many lives, too many jobs, and too many opportunities because Washington got it wrong.
I just need to point this out. Dr. Oz, in an interview with Hannity back in April of 2020, said that we should reopen the schools while referencing a study that warned we'd have a 2 to 3% of school children die as a result.
Yeah, I tell you, schools are a very appetizing opportunity. I just saw a nice piece in The Lancet arguing that the opening of schools may only cost us 2 to 3% in terms of total mortality. And, that's any life is a life lost. But to get every child back into a school where they're safely being educated, being fed, and making the most out of their lives with a theoretical risk in the backside, it might be a trade-off some folks would consider.
Yeah, that's a bad thing, you psychopath. Say you have a school of 400 kids. Well, 8 to 12 of those kids, they're going to die gasping for breath, but I can live with that percentage. Sure. No. Ew. What? Evil.
As a heart surgeon, I know how precious life is.
Apparently about 97 to 98%. You jackass. But hey, what did you say earlier in that campaign ad?
Because Washington got it wrong.
Yeah, he pushed hydroxychloroquine. The anti-malarial drug that was touted by Trump and him and a bunch of other dingbats, and all saying it was going to be the miracle cure for COVID, and it does nothing for COVID.
Pennsylvania needs a conservative who will put America first.
You guys really got to stop using that slogan. Holy shit. Anyway, let's do a brief recap. If you want to dive deeper, you can always watch my older content on Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz pushes unproven medical and health treatments. An analysis of his show found that less than half the claims made had any relevant evidence to support them. His wife is an anti-vaxxer, and he most likely is too. He's opposed to genetic engineering despite it being our best shot at solving world hunger. He pushes grifters and quacks like John Edwards, Mike Adams, and Joseph Mercola. And lastly, he got dragged in front of the government and grilled for his bogus and shady claims that he made on his TV show. But I think that last point is probably the most important.
No one's telling you not to use passion, but passion in connection with the word miracle, pill, and weight loss is a recipe for disaster in this environment in terms of the people who are looking for an easy fix and getting sometimes, I think, delusional about whether or not an easy fix is going to be there for them. We didn't call this hearing to beat up on you, but we did call this hearing to talk about a real crisis in consumer protection. And you can either be part of the police here or you can be part of the problem, and we're just hopeful that you will do a better job at being part of the police.
You see, this is why he's running. Dr. Oz is not used to not being in control. And him getting grilled by the Senate is something that probably stuck with him for a really long time, and it's probably really bugging him. So now he wants to be the one that does the grilling. And I, for one, hope his ass loses. And now, it's time for the COVID catch-up.
There is no evidence that I can see that a pandemic exists.
Hey, you gotta vaccinate in the Lone Star State. Vaccination is so great. Vaccinate.
I only asked, how many vaccines have you had? Have you been a good little Nazi? Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci!
Let's start things off light.
You need to be aware that you have been injected with something, unless it was a placebo, but you may have been injected with something that creates your body to make these evil little invisible parasites called spiked proteins.
Go on.
We had a pet lamb and someone came to our house who had not been vaccinated, but her partner had been vaccinated. And she was shedding.
She was shitting?
Shedding.
Shitting?
So her partner got her to be shedding these spike proteins.
All I hear is shitting.
Now this girl came to our house, picked up our pet lamb, gave it a cuddle, put it down. The next day it wouldn't drink its milk. By the end of that day, it was just lying down and it was not even, couldn't stand up or anything. We put it out of its misery, and I'm a nurse, so I wanted to see what the blood was like, so we had a look at the blood. It was black and clotted.
I see. So a friend came over who just couldn't stop shitting, and then they picked up your lamb, and it got black blood. That sounds more like Ebola, actually.
No wonder everyone is dropping with heart attack and stroke. votes.
And the worst part about all this is people are really going to believe it. But then again, that's where we're going to have to go this month as we address the current state of the pandemic. Here in the United States, mandates are beginning to lift. And is that a good thing? Probably not, but, we'll see. I'm going to continue to wear my mask for the next 5 weeks just to see what happens, just in case we get another nasty wave, which is completely possible. You see, Omicron variants are rampaging throughout the world right now, and the one saving grace that the United States might have is that we're so bad at dealing with this, a ton of us already had it this last year, which might confer a little bit of protection. Maybe. But we need to talk about cost. 6 million people have died from COVID globally. That's 990,000 just here in the United States alone, which, by the way, is the number one currently. We have the high score. We're holding on to it. We did it, guys. We did it! There has also been a financial cost of $24 trillion in United States dollars globally. But there's another cost that we really need to be aware of, and that is the ramifications this has for public discourse and politics. Remember how I said I really don't want to talk about politics on this channel, but you know what? Here we go! Because I have to admit this, the anti-vaxxers, they won. I've been ringing the bell about this for years. My long-form content on movies like Bot, on Vaxxed, and covering many, many similar topics throughout the years. I've been warning all along that this kind of thing was going to happen. Anti-vaxxers finding relevance, developing better techniques and strategies in order to sow seeds of, paranoia and fear regarding, all medical practices, science, and the government. And now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of reasons to distrust the government, after all, especially here. As has been proven over and over again, our politicians are very, very corruptible. But unfortunately, this also translates to cost. The alliance that has been building between the alternative health, self-help movements, chiropractic, anti-vax, and now mainstream right wing has built a monolith of disinformation. And I'm not happy in saying this because I think a healthy society needs two sides to argue in order to truly thrive. I really do. But this is something new, something bloated and horrifying. It's a social and political movement that is based entirely around glorifying stupidity and embracing fear. And the people that are in a position that could actually argue against it are wildly ineffective. And this leaves us with our political and our health and our educational systems hijacked. And COVID was just an excuse for this to happen. It didn't create this situation. It just happened because, nature is not our goddamn friend. No, this was done on purpose with specific goals in mind and very, very big money put in place to push it to happen. And now we live in this hellscape of ignorance. And this cost is not just in our social ramifications, but also in the lives of our loved ones. And it's not going to end there. It's not going to end with the pandemic ending, if the pandemic ever actually ends. Consider this. As of this recording right now, there is a freedom convoy of truckers in Washington, D.C., all protesting to get back the freedoms that are being given back right now. Mandates are starting to end. The world is attempting to get back to normal, whether that's a good idea or not. But still, they are there. They're there because this is their civil rights movement. This is their moment to shine and scream about their persecution. And it's not going to be a long step to go from anti-COVID or even just simply anti-mandate attitudes to outright vaccine hesitancy. It is not a far leap. And considering that measles is vastly, vastly more contagious and more dangerous and deadly than COVID, should this start to happen, we stand to enter into a new fucking world of horrors. Now, am I being alarmist on this? I don't think so. I've dedicated years to this. My entire channel is now dedicated to this, despite the fact that if I were to do something like, politics or something, my channel wouldn't be metered into shit in the algorithm, and I'd be paid a hell of a lot more. But I do this because I believe in it, and because I see these things happening. Now, the point of this monologue is very simple. I want you to take this seriously. When there is a vacuum, when COVID is no longer the thing to fight against or for or whatever, when there is that vacuum, it will be filled by something. They have seen their win here, and they will want more. It will shift, and it will adapt, and they will do everything they can to maintain their momentum. And you need to start taking a stand as well. Vote against candidates that are either adjacent to or directly inside these circles of influence that are pushing these kinds of narratives. You need to have conversations with your family, with your friends. You need to be aggressive about this because this is not the end. This is not the end at all. This is just another step in a long ladder of suck that is going to continue to push us in a terrible, terrible direction. But most of all, just don't be silent. Use your voice. Use what you have. Organize if you can in your own small communities, in your friend groups, and do whatever is possible. And if anybody has any other better ideas, I'm willing to listen. Short of somebody telling me that I should join politics or something like that, because, well, my earlier shenanigans have pretty much ruined any chance of that. Whoops. Now, this might be the last catching up with COVID segment, and I honestly hope it is. I would love for the pandemic to be over. I would love that there be true wisdom in the idea of, stopping the mandates. I hope it's the right call. I super do. I really want us to be able to get back to the new normal because things are never going to get back to the way they were. Whatever that's going to look like, only time is going to tell. Anyway, that's it for this month in pseudoscience for March. It was a little bit of an odder one. I hope I have instilled within you the importance of some of the things we talked about today. Just a little bit of shilling for myself. If you would like to support this channel, because YouTube doesn't, check out my Patreon. Also, I'm live on Twitch quite often, twitch.tv/RealJeffHoliday. If you want to check out my nerd channel, World of Holiday, that's my third channel. Second channel is Holiday, and is a bunch of spicy political stuff. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I guess I have a t-shirt shop. Anyway, I'll see some of you guys at the end of the month for the Wingnut Roundup. I can't wait. It's my favorite thing in the world. From my family to yours, take care of yourselves and each other. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.